My name is Maria Carter. I'm 32 years old, and I live in London. For most of my life, people told me I was responsible, dependable, the one who always did the right thing. What they meant was that I was useful. What they meant was that I knew my place. And my place, according to my family, was at the bottom of their priority list and the top of their bank account. Let me tell you how 14 years of funding someone else's perfect life taught me exactly when to stop paying. 12 hours before everything fell apart, I stood in my childhood home, arranging catering platters in the kitchen while my younger sister Sophie posed for selfies in the garden. The house in Hampstead looked perfect as always, with its manicured lawn and climbing roses, the kind of home that whispered old money and good breeding. My parents had worked their entire lives to project this image, and I had worked my entire life to fund it. The numbers were clear in my head. £47,000 over 14 years. Sophie's private school fees when my parents couldn't afford them. The house renovations they'd put on my credit cards. The designer clothes. The holidays to Tuscany. The weekly dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford for myself. All documented in spreadsheets my solicitor had reviewed 3 times. I watched through the kitchen window as my mother Margaret adjusted the floral centerpieces on the outdoor tables, her pearls glinting in the afternoon sun. She moved with the practiced grace of a woman who had spent decades performing perfection. My father Robert stood near the gate, greeting early arrivals with firm handshakes and that booming laugh he reserved for impressing people. Nobody looked at me. Nobody ever did. Sophie twirled in her designer dress, the one that cost £800 and came from my credit card without my permission. Her friends clustered around her, phones raised, capturing every angle. I could hear her voice drifting through the open door. My sister is buying me a BMW 3 Series. Can you believe it? She is so generous. Generous. That word stuck in my throat like a stone. There is nothing generous about what I had done for this family. Generosity implies choice. For 14 years, I had not been given a choice. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Emma Richardson, my solicitor. Everything is ready if you need it. The hardship clause is active. Bankruptcy protection filed this morning. You have options, Maria. I touched the locket around my neck, the only thing in this house that truly belonged to me. My grandmother Helena had given it to me before she died 4 years ago. Inside was a tiny photo of the 2 of us, and on the back she had engraved words I read every day. You are enough. My father appeared in the kitchen doorway, his expression tight. Maria, where are the car keys? The presentation is at 3. We need to coordinate with the photographer. I looked at him calmly. We need to talk privately, Dad. Not now. Do not ruin Sophie's day. We will discuss it after the party. There is nothing to discuss. I am not buying Sophie a car. His face darkened instantly, but guests were arriving, and Robert Carter never made scenes in public. We will talk about this later. Do not embarrass us. But I had spent 32 years not embarrassing them. I had spent 32 years being the good daughter, the responsible one, the one who could be counted on to sacrifice her dreams so that Sophie could chase hers. And in 3 hours, that was going to end. I moved through the party like a ghost, arranging plates and refilling drinks while 117 guests celebrated my sister's transition into adulthood. People I had known my entire life smiled at me absently, then turned their attention back to Sophie, the golden child, the miracle baby, the one who deserved everything. No one asked about my life. No one ever did. At 2:47 p.m., I stepped into the downstairs bathroom and locked the door. My hands were shaking. I stared at myself in the mirror, at the woman who'd paid for this house's renovation 3 years ago, who'd covered the catering bill today, who was expected to hand over £32,000 for a BMW she'd never agreed to buy. What if I was wrong? What if saying no meant losing my entire family? What if 14 years of sacrifice meant I owed them this one more thing? What if my grandmother had been wrong and I wasn't enough on my own? I pulled out my phone and opened the photo album I kept hidden. 47 screenshots of bank transfers, text messages from my mother. Maria, Sophie needs $800 for the dress. Transfer it today. Maria, we need $3,200 by Friday for the holiday deposit. Maria, your sister deserves the best. Family takes care of family. Never. Please. Never. Thank you. Never. How are you managing? I read Grandmother Helena's words on the locket one more time. You are enough. Then I dried my hands, fixed my lipstick, and walked back out to the party. At 3:15 p.m., my father called for everyone's attention. The photographer positioned Sophie in front of the garden fountain, the Hampstead house gleaming behind her in perfect afternoon light. 117 guests gathered around, phones ready to capture the moment. My father looked directly at me. Maria, would you like to do the honors? I walked forward slowly, acutely aware of every eye on me. For once in my life, my family was actually looking at me, waiting for me to play my role. The responsible one, the dependable one, the one who knew her place. I stood in front of Sophie, in front of the photographer, in front of 117 witnesses, and I said 5 words I'd been practicing for 3 years. I'm not buying the car. The silence was absolute. Sophie's smile froze. My father's face went dark red. My mother actually gasped, her hand flying to her pearls. What did you say? My father's voice was dangerously quiet. I'm not buying Sophie a BMW. I'm not buying Sophie anything. I filed for bankruptcy protection this morning. Every pound I've given this family over 14 years, 47,000 pounds documented and verified by my solicitor, is subject to a hardship review. You'll be hearing from my legal representation about repayment terms. Sophie burst into tears. My mother stepped forward, her voice shaking. You have destroyed this family. How dare you embarrass us like this? How dare you be so selfish? But I'd spent 32 years being selfless for people who never once asked what I needed. I'd spent 14 years funding a lifestyle I couldn't afford while they pretended I was being generous. I'd spent 3 years documenting every demand, every guilt trip, every time they chose Sophie's wants over my basic financial stability. I'm done, I said simply. I'm done paying for your perfect image. I'm done being invisible in my own life, and I'm done being family to people who only valued me as a bank account. I walked away from that party, from that house, from that life. Behind me, I could hear chaos erupting. Sophie sobbing, guests whispering, my parents trying to salvage the situation. But for the first time in 32 years, I wasn't looking back. Because Grandmother Helena had been right. I was enough. And I didn't need to buy my family's love anymore. If this story hits home, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every betrayal I share comes with a twist you won't see coming. I was 8 years old when Sophie was born, and that was the day I stopped being a daughter and became a servant. My parents had tried for years to have another child. 3 miscarriages before Sophie, each one leaving my mother more desperate, more fragile, more convinced that another baby would complete our family. When Sophie finally arrived, healthy and screaming, my mother called her a miracle. My father called her precious. And I was told, in 100 different ways, that my job was to make sure nothing ever harmed her. At 8 years old, I changed nappies and warmed bottles. I learned to recognize different types of cries and what they meant. When Sophie had colic and screamed through the night, I was the one who walked her up and down the hallway while my parents slept. You are such a good big sister, my mother would say, as if gratitude was payment for lost sleep and lost childhood. I learned early that my needs came second. When I wanted to join the school orchestra, my mother said we could not afford it because Sophie needed a specialist pediatrician. When I asked for a birthday party like my friends had, my father said we needed to save money for Sophie's future. When I cried about feeling left out, I was told that I was being selfish. Big girls do not cry about little things, Maria. Your sister needs us. I stopped crying. I stopped asking. I learned to be small and quiet and useful. By the time I was 14, I was essentially Sophie's second mother. I walked her to school every morning and picked her up every afternoon. I helped with her homework and made her dinner and read her bedtime stories while my parents attended charity galas and business dinners. When I won an academic scholarship to a prestigious program, my parents missed the ceremony because Sophie had a dance recital. I stood on that stage alone, holding my certificate, and told myself it did not matter. But it did matter. Every dismissal, every forgotten moment, every time I was expected to shrink so Sophie could shine, it mattered. The pain accumulated like interest on a debt I had never agreed to pay. When I was 16, I got a part-time job at a bookshop. I loved the quiet and the smell of paper and the feeling of earning my own money. I saved every pound, dreaming of university, of freedom, of a life where I could be more than someone's caretaker. I tucked the money away carefully, building a small account that felt like hope. Then my mother found my bank statements. Maria, darling, we need to talk about your savings. Your father and I think it would be better if we managed this money for you, for your future. I was 17. The university fund I had built, £2,000 earned through a year of weekend shifts, disappeared into the family account. When I asked what happened to it, my father said it went toward Sophie's private school fees. She needs the best education, Maria. You understand. I understood that my labor did not belong to me. I understood that in this family, I was not a person. I was a resource. University should have been my escape. I had earned excellent marks and received offers from schools across the country. I dreamed of studying in Edinburgh or Manchester, somewhere far enough that I could finally breathe. But my parents had other plans. You will attend King's College and live at home, my father announced. It is more practical. We need you here to help with Sophie. I attended King's College. I lived at home. I spent my university years working full-time at a local accounting firm while completing my degree, sending half my salary home for family expenses. My classmates lived in dormitories and attended parties and built friendships. I came home every night to cook dinner and help Sophie with her homework and listen to my parents discuss her future as if it was the only future that mattered. When I graduated with honors, we had a small dinner at home. Sophie was 10 years old and bored, playing on her phone throughout the meal. My mother bought a cake from the supermarket. My father gave me a brief nod of approval. Then the conversation turned to Sophie's upcoming audition for a youth theater program, and my achievement disappeared like smoke. I told myself I was being noble. I told myself that family sacrifice was meaningful. I told myself the pain was temporary. I was wrong. My 20s were a blur of work and obligation. I became a senior accountant at a respected firm, earning a good salary, building a career that should have led to independence. But every month my parents asked for more. Just $500 this month for Sophie's music lessons. Just $1,000 for the family holiday. Just $2,000 because we are short on the mortgage. I paid. I always paid. Because saying no meant guilt trips and tears and accusations of selfishness. Because saying no meant my mother's cold silence and my father's disappointed lectures about family loyalty. Because saying no meant admitting that I was being used and that truth was too painful to face. Sophie grew into a spoiled teenager who expected the world to be handed to her. She got designer clothes and expensive electronics and holidays abroad. She never worked, never saved, never learned the value of money because she had never needed to. She was beautiful and charming and utterly convinced that the universe revolved around her wants. And why would she think otherwise? She had spent her entire life watching our parents worship her while using me. When I was 29, my grandmother, Helena, died. She was my father's mother, a strong woman who had built her own successful business and never suffered fools. She was the only person in my family who really saw me. When I visited her in hospital during her final days, she held my hand with surprising strength. "Promise me something, Maria. Promise me you will live for yourself." "I promise, Gran." She smiled sadly. "No, you do not understand yet. But you will. I have made sure of it." I did not understand what she meant until 3 weeks after the funeral. A solicitor named Emma Richardson contacted me to discuss my inheritance. I assumed it would be some small keepsake, maybe a few £1,000s. I met her in her office in the city, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Thames. "Maria, your grandmother established a trust fund in your name 15 years ago. She added to it regularly, and with investment growth, it currently holds £250,000. I stared at her, unable to process the words. "That is not possible." "It is very possible. And it is entirely yours. Your grandmother was explicit. This money cannot be accessed by your parents or any other family member. It is held in trust until you turn 35. Or earlier if you claim hardship due to family circumstances." She slid a letter across the desk. "This was left for you." I opened it with shaking hands. My grandmother's handwriting, firm and clear. "My dearest Maria, if you are reading this, I have left you. I am not sorry to go. I have lived a full life. But I am sorry I did not protect you better while I was here. I watched your parents use you like currency, watched them drain your youth and your money and your spirit, and I said nothing because I thought you would find your strength on your own. Perhaps that was cowardice. Perhaps I should have intervened. But what I can do now is give you options. This money is yours alone. Protect it. Build your life with it. And remember, my darling girl, you owe them nothing but goodbye. With all my love, Gran." I sat in that office and cried for 20 minutes while Emma Richardson waited patiently. When I finally looked up, she handed me a tissue and spoke gently. "Your grandmother anticipated that your family might try to access this fund. She built in very strong protections. They cannot touch it. But Maria, they will try." She was right. My parents found out about the inheritance when Emma's office accidentally called the house phone trying to reach me. My mother answered, and within an hour, I was sitting in the living room facing both of my parents and their sudden interest in my financial situation. "A trust fund," my father said slowly. "Your grandmother left you a substantial trust fund." "Yes. And you are not going to tell us?" "It is my inheritance, Dad. Gran left it specifically to me." "Family money should benefit the family," my mother said, her voice sharp. "Your grandmother would want us all to benefit. She was very clear that it was for me alone." My father's expression hardened. "Maria, Sophie is about to start university. Do you know how expensive that will be? Your grandmother would want you to help your sister." And so it began. 3 years of constant pressure, manipulation, and escalating demands. At first it was subtle. Family meetings where they discussed Sophie's future and looked at me expectantly. Casual comments about how fortunate I was and how Sophie deserved opportunities too. Reminders of everything they had done for me, ignoring the fact that I had paid back every penny and more over the past decade. When subtle did not work, they became direct. My father presented me with legal documents that would give him power of attorney over the trust. Just for management purposes, Maria, you do not understand investments like I do. I refused to sign. I stalled and made excuses and quietly consulted with Emma, who assured me the documents were designed to give my parents complete control. The pressure intensified. My mother cried and claimed I was destroying the family. My father threatened to cut me off, though what he would cut me off from was unclear since I had been financially supporting them for years, not the other way around. Sophie added her own pressure with stunning obliviousness. You will help me pay for uni, right? And I will need a car. Everyone at my school is getting cars for their 18th birthday. That BMW became the focal point of everything. My parents decided, without consulting me, that I would buy Sophie a 35,000-pound car for her birthday. They announced it to relatives, posted about it on social media, told Sophie she could choose the color. I said no. I said it clearly and repeatedly, but they acted as if I had not spoken. You will buy the car, my father said one evening, his voice cold with authority. We have already told everyone. You will not embarrass this family. I began documenting everything, every demand, every threat, every pound they had taken from me over the years. I opened a secret bank account and started moving money slowly, carefully. I found a small flat to rent and put down a deposit. I researched financial abuse and restraining orders and escape plans because I finally understood what my grandmother had known all along. This was not love. This was exploitation, and the only way to survive was to leave. The night before Sophie's party, I stood in my childhood bedroom and packed a bag. I left it at my friend Rachel's house, along with copies of all my documentation. I called Emma and told her I might need to trigger the hardship clause. She said she would be ready. I was not leaving to hurt them. I was leaving to save myself. But I knew that to people who have been standing on your back, you rising feels like an attack. And when I rose tomorrow, they were going to fall. The morning of Sophie's 18th birthday party began with my mother rushing through the house in a panic of last-minute preparations. I arrived at 9, as instructed, to help set up while Sophie slept in. The caterers were already there, arranging tables and stringing lights across the garden. It all looked beautiful, like something from a magazine. The perfect setting for the perfect family, except nothing about us was perfect. It had all been built on a foundation of my silence and my labor and my money, and today, that foundation was going to crack. Maria, my mother called from the garden. Did you bring the car keys? We need to coordinate with the photographer for the presentation. I walked outside slowly, feeling the weight of the moment settling on my shoulders. Mum, I need to talk to you and Dad privately before the party starts. Her face tightened with annoyance. Not now. We have 100 things to do. Whatever it is can wait. It cannot wait. My father appeared from the house, already in his formal jacket despite the heat. He looked at me with that expression I knew so well, the one that said I was being inconvenient. What is the problem? There is no car. I am not buying Sophie a BMW. The silence that followed felt like the air had been sucked out of the garden. My mother's mouth opened and closed. My father went very still. What did you say? I said, I am not buying the car. I never agreed to it. You decided without asking me, and I am saying no. My father moved closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. Do not do this. Do not you dare do this today. I have been saying no for weeks. You chose not to listen. My mother's face flushed with anger. Maria, you are being ridiculous. We have already told everyone. Sophie is expecting it. You cannot change your mind now. I did not change my mind. I never agreed in the first place. That money is meant for family, my father hissed. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. The invocation of my grandmother, the woman who had explicitly left the money to me alone, who had warned me this would happen, made something snap inside me. Gran left the money to me, not to you, not to Sophie, to me, and I am keeping it. We raised you, my mother said, her voice shaking. We fed you and clothed you and gave you everything. You owe us. I have paid you back every penny and more. Over 14 years, I have given this family over £180,000. My university fund, my flat deposit, half my salary every month. I do not owe you anything anymore. My father's face went dark with rage. You will buy that car, or you are no longer part of this family. The threat hung in the air between us, the same threat they had used 100 times before, the fear that had kept me compliant for years. But this time, something was different. This time, I had options. This time, I had an escape route. This time, I was ready. Then I am no longer part of this family. My mother gasped as if I had struck her. You do not mean that. I have never meant anything more in my life. Guests began arriving, and my parents had no choice but to paste on smiles and play their roles. But I could feel the tension radiating off them, see the way they watched me with barely concealed fury. Sophie floated through the gathering crowd in her expensive dress, utterly oblivious to the war brewing around her. The party unfolded with excruciating slowness. I moved through it mechanically, watching my parents charm their guests while shooting me venomous looks when no one was watching. People ate and drank and congratulated Sophie, who glowed with entitled happiness. No one noticed I had not brought a gift. At 2:30, my father approached me in the kitchen where I was refilling ice. The dealership called this morning. You never finalized the payment. Fix this now? No. That single word, spoken clearly, made him take a step back. What? I said, no. I am not buying the car. I am not giving you money anymore. I am done. You are making a mistake, Maria. A very serious mistake. The only mistake I made was waiting this long. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You will do as you are told. I pulled away from him, my voice rising. Do not touch me! My mother rushed in, her face panicked. Keep your voice down, people will hear. Good, let them hear. But before the confrontation could escalate further, Sophie burst into the kitchen, her friends trailing behind her. Is it time yet? Can I see my car now? The four of us froze, a terrible tableau of family dysfunction. Sophie looked from face to face, her smile faltering. What is going on? My mother recovered first, her voice too bright. Nothing, darling. Just working out the timing. Why do not you go enjoy your guests? We will call you when we are ready. Sophie left, but her suspicious glance back told me she knew something was wrong. My parents and I stood in tense silence until the kitchen was empty again. At 3 o'clock, my father walked out to the center of the garden and called for everyone's attention. I watched from the doorway, my heart pounding, as 100 faces turned toward him expectantly. Thank you all for coming to celebrate our beautiful Sophie turning 18, he began, his voice warm and jovial. She is growing into such a remarkable young woman, and we could not be more proud. Applause and cheers. Sophie beamed, soaking in the attention. Now, as you all know, Sophie has been looking forward to a very special gift, and her wonderful sister Maria has something to present. All eyes turned to me. I could feel the weight of their expectations, their assumptions, the story my parents had sold about generous Maria and her extravagant gift. I walked forward slowly, each step feeling like walking through water. Sophie bounced excitedly, her friends recording on their phones. My mother watched me with desperate eyes, silently begging me to comply. My father's expression was harder, a clear warning. I stopped in front of Sophie. The crowd waited in anticipatory silence. Happy birthday, Sophie! She laughed, looking around. Where is it? Where is my car? There is no car. The words dropped into the gathering like a stone into still water. Ripples of confusion spread through the crowd. What? Sophie's smile froze on her face. What do you mean? I mean, I am not buying you a car. I never agreed to buy you a car. Mom and Dad promised you something with my money without asking me, and I am saying no. Gasps echoed across the garden. Phones pointed at us, recording this moment for posterity. Sophie's face crumbled from confusion into fury. But you promised! No, they promised. Using my money, without my consent. A woman near the front spoke up. I am confused. Did you not tell everyone that Maria was buying the car? My father's face went red. This is a private family matter. You made it public when you announced my supposed gift to 100 people, I said. My voice steady despite my racing heart. Sophie lunged toward me, her voice rising to a shriek. You selfish bitch! You have ruined everything. Everyone knows I was getting a BMW. How am I supposed to face my friends? You could say thank you for the 14 years I spent funding your privileged life. My mother moved forward, grabbing my arm. Claire, stop this right now. You are embarrassing us. I pulled away from her. No, you have embarrassed yourselves by treating me like a bank account instead of a daughter. How dare you, my father growled, moving toward me with purpose. We raised you. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing but expectations and demands. You took my university fund. You took my flat deposit. You have taken over 180,000 pounds from me over 14 years. And now you want me to spend 35,000 more on a car for a girl who has never worked a day in her life? Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some people looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable, as if they were witnessing something they should not see. But no one left. Everyone watched, transfixed. That money was given willingly, my father said, his voice rising. You wanted to help your family. Was it willing when you took my university fund without asking? Was it willing when you told me I owed you for raising me? Was it willing when you threatened to disown me if I did not buy this car? A woman I recognized as our neighbor, Mrs. Davies, spoke up. Is this true? Have you been taking her money? This is none of your business, my mother snapped, but her voice shook. You made it everyone's business when you announced my gift without my permission. Sophie was crying now, mascara running down her face. I hate you. You have always hated me. You are jealous because Mum and Dad love me more. The words should have hurt, but instead, I felt a strange clarity. No, Sophie, I am not jealous. I am exhausted. I am tired of being the one who sacrifices everything so you can have everything. You will sign over that trust fund, my father said, his voice cold and hard. You will give us access to that money? No. He moved fast, grabbing my shoulders and shaking me. You will obey me. Let go of me. His hand rose, and for a moment I saw the rage in his eyes, the fury of a man who has lost control. Then his palm connected with my face, a sharp crack that echoed across the suddenly silent garden. I stumbled backward, my cheek exploding in pain. Gasps and shouts erupted from the crowd. Someone screamed to call the police. My mother rushed forward, but not to help me. She grabbed my hair, yanking my head back. How dare you destroy our family? How dare you? I tried to pull away, but my father still had hold of me, and between the two of them, I lost my balance. I fell backward, my head connecting with the corner of a serving table. Glass shattered around me, pain burst through my skull, and the world tilted sideways. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard shouting, heard Sophie crying, heard someone yelling that they were calling an ambulance. I tried to sit up, but my head swam and nausea rolled through me. Get up, my father snarled. Stop being dramatic, but I could not get up. The world was spinning, and I could feel something warm running down the side of my face. Blood, I realized distantly. Mrs. Davies was suddenly beside me, her hands gentle. Do not move, love. Help is coming. More faces appeared above me, strangers and neighbors, all looking shocked and horrified. And standing at the back of the crowd, recording everything on her phone, was Sophie, her face pale but her hands steady. The siren started then, growing louder. The last thing I saw before the paramedics arrived was my mother's face, not worried or concerned, but terrified of what the neighbors would think. And I realized with perfect clarity that I had never been her daughter. I had always been her reputation. And now, in front of everyone, that reputation was bleeding on the patio. The hospital emergency room was bright and cold and filled with efficient strangers who spoke to me like I mattered. A nurse cleaned the wound on my head while a doctor examined my pupils and asked me questions about dizziness and nausea. They moved around me with practiced care, and for the first time in hours, I felt safe. The police arrived while I was being stitched up. Officer Matthews, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, pulled up a chair beside my bed. Maria, I am going to ask you some questions, and I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Take your time. So I told her, not just about the assault, but about everything, about 14 years of financial exploitation, about the constant pressure and manipulation, about the threats and the demands and the way they had used my silence as consent. And this was not the first time they had been violent. The physical violence was today. But the emotional abuse has been going on for years. She wrote everything down carefully, then looked at me directly. Maria, what happened today was assault. But what you are describing is a pattern of coercive control and financial abuse. Would you be willing to make a formal statement? Yes. Within an hour, Emma Richardson arrived, slightly out of breath and carrying a briefcase. She took one look at me and her expression hardened. Maria, are you all right? I have been better. She pulled up a chair and opened her briefcase. Right, we are triggering the hardship clause immediately. As of this moment, you have full, immediate access to your trust fund. Your parents cannot touch it, cannot make claims against it, cannot come near it or you. I am also filing for an emergency protective order. How long will that take? With what happened today? I can have it by tomorrow morning. A social worker arrived next, introducing herself as Patricia. She sat on the edge of my bed and spoke gently. Maria, I need to ask you a difficult question. Do you have somewhere safe to go when you are released? Somewhere your family cannot find you. I have a friend, Rachel. She has been holding some things for me. Good. That is very good. I am going to give you some information about resources available to you. Support groups, counseling services, legal aid. You are not alone in this. The police photographed my injuries. The split skin on my cheek, already swelling. The bruises on my arms where my parents had grabbed me. The lump on the back of my head from hitting the table. Each photo felt like documentation of something I had been too afraid to name for years. My parents tried to come to the hospital, but the police stopped them at the entrance. I heard raised voices in the hallway, heard my father demanding to see his daughter, heard the officer calmly explaining that I had requested no contact. They assaulted her, the officer said. They are not coming in. Later that evening, Emma returned with paperwork. The protective order hearing is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. Given the witnesses and the medical documentation, it should be granted immediately. Maria, I need you to understand something. What your parents did today, they have been doing for years. It was just quieter before, more socially acceptable. But it was still abuse. I know. Good. Because they are going to try to make you feel guilty. They are going to say you are destroying the family. But you did not destroy anything. You simply stopped being destroyed. I was released from hospital the next morning with strict instructions to rest and follow up with my GP. Rachel picked me up, her car already packed with the bags I had left at her house weeks ago, preparing for this moment. "You are staying with us as long as you need," she said firmly, pulling me into a careful hug. "My family's family. You are always welcome." The protective order hearing was swift and devastating for my parents. They sat in the courtroom looking smaller than I had ever seen them, my father's usual confidence shattered, my mother's perfect composure crumbling. The judge reviewed the evidence quickly: the police report, the witness statements from party guests, the medical records, the years of financial documentation showing systematic exploitation. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter," the judge said, her voice flat with disapproval, "the evidence here is clear and concerning. I am granting a full protective order. You are to have no contact with your daughter. No phone calls, no messages, no third-party contact. If she wishes to collect belongings from your home, police will escort her. Do you understand?" My mother tried to speak. "Your Honor, please. There has been a misunderstanding. We love our daughter. This is a family matter. Ms. Carter has the right to safety, regardless of your relationship." Order granted. I walked out of that courtroom with Emma beside me, and for the first time in my life, I felt the weight lifting. Not gone, not yet, but lifting. The consequences came swiftly and without mercy. Within a week, the party footage had spread through our social circle and beyond. Multiple guests had recorded the assault, and though I had not shared the videos, others had. Local community groups discussed it. Parents at Sophie's school whispered about it. My father's colleagues saw it. My father was placed on leave from his position at the investment firm, pending an internal investigation. The company could not afford the publicity of employing someone charged with assault. His income, which they had relied on alongside my contributions, disappeared overnight. My mother was quietly asked to step down from her charity board positions. No one wanted the scandal, the questions, the association with family violence. Her carefully curated social life evaporated. Sophie's world collapsed more slowly, but just as thoroughly. The video of her filming my assault, of her standing by while her parents attacked me, spread through her school and university applications. Several schools that had offered her places contacted her to discuss concerns about character and judgment. Her Instagram, once full of filtered perfection and humble brags, became a comment section of criticism. People asked how she could watch her sister being beaten. People called her entitled and cruel. Her followers dropped by the thousands. The BMW that had started everything remained forever out of reach. My parents could not afford it without my money. Their house, the mortgage they could no longer cover without my contributions, went up for sale within a month. I heard all this secondhand through mutual acquaintances and legal updates. I did not contact them. I did not check their social media. I focused on healing. Rachel's family embraced me with the kind of warmth I had never known. Her mother cooked meals and did not ask me to clean up. Her father told terrible jokes and did not expect anything in return. Her younger siblings treated me like another sister, but one whose company they actually valued. "I am sorry your family was like that," Rachel's mother said one evening, squeezing my hand. "But you are part of our family now, and family should never hurt you." I started therapy twice a week with a counselor who specialized in family trauma and financial abuse. Dr. Patel was patient and kind and never made me feel broken. "You survived, Maria. That takes incredible strength. Now we work on helping you thrive." The trust fund, finally under my complete control, sat in my account like a promise. I did not touch it at first, except to secure a small flat of my own, a one-bedroom in Islington with large windows and space that belonged only to me. Moving day, 3 months after the party, felt like being born. Rachel helped me unpack boxes in silence, hanging curtains and arranging books. understanding without words that this was sacred space. When she left that evening, I stood in my empty living room and cried. Not from sadness, but from relief so profound it felt like drowning in reverse, like surfacing after being held underwater for years. My phone rang occasionally with calls from family members trying to mediate. Aunts and cousins asking me to forgive, to be reasonable, to remember that family is forever. I blocked them all. Family's not forever. Family is conditional, and they had not met the conditions. Emma called with updates. Your father has been charged with assault. Given the circumstances and the witnesses, he will likely accept a plea deal. Your mother is being investigated for her part in the assault as well. And Sophie? No criminal charges. She was a minor at the time, and being a bystander is not illegal. But Maria, the social consequences for her have been severe. I felt no satisfaction in that, no victory, just sadness for the girl who had been raised to believe she deserved the world at someone else's expense. 6 months after the party, I returned to my parents' house one final time, escorted by police to collect the last of my belongings. The house looked different, smaller, tired. The for sale sign in the garden was sun-faded and worn. My mother answered the door, her face gaunt, her hair grayer than I remembered. She opened her mouth to speak, but the officer raised a hand. No contact, Mrs. Carter. Ms. Carter is here to collect property only. I walked through the house like a stranger, recognizing rooms but not feeling any attachment to them. I took photo albums that included me, some books, the few possessions that felt like mine. I left trophies and childhood drawings and anything that belonged to the girl who had tried so hard to earn love that could not be bought. My father sat in his study, door cracked, and I caught a glimpse of him as I passed. He looked old and defeated, surrounded by papers and unopened mail. He did not look at me. Sophie's room door was closed, and I did not knock. I left my key on the kitchen counter and walked out without looking back. 1 year after Sophie's 18th birthday party, I sat in my flat with morning sunlight streaming through the windows and a cup of coffee warming my hands. The view was not spectacular, just London rooftops and a slice of sky, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every book on the shelf, every choice about what to hang on the walls, mine. My phone buzzed with a message from Emma. Thought you would want to know. Final settlement approved. Your parents will repay £30,000 over the next 10 years. It is not everything, but it is justice. I stared at the message for a long moment. £30,000 would not undo 14 years of exploitation. It would not give me back my 20s or heal the wounds of being invisible in my own family. But it was acknowledgement, official and legal, that what they had done was wrong. I typed back. Thank you for everything. The past year had been a study in rebuilding, not just my life, but myself. I had started to understand through therapy that I had learned to equate love with sacrifice, that I had been taught my value came from usefulness. Dr. Patel helped me untangle those beliefs slowly, carefully, like unsnarling years of knotted thread. You are allowed to take up space, Maria. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to say no without justification. Saying no became my practice. No to requests that did not serve me. No to guilt trips from distant relatives. No to the voice in my head that said I was being selfish. Each no was painful at first, like exercising an atrophied muscle. But it got easier. My career flourished without the weight of family obligation draining my energy. I was promoted to senior financial consultant, and I started specializing in helping women understand their finances after leaving abusive relationships. My own experience became a tool to help others. The first time a client cried in my office, thanking me for helping her see that her husband's control of money was abuse, I understood what my grandmother had meant. My pain had purpose now. I joined a support group, for adult children of narcissistic parents. Sitting in a circle with 10 other people who understood the specific pain of family estrangement felt like coming home in a way my actual home never had. We shared stories and strategies and sometimes just sat in silence, holding space for grief that our culture did not acknowledge. "How do you mourn people who are still alive?" one woman asked. "How do you grieve a family you never really had?" No one had answers, but we all understood the question. I kept my grandmother's locket on my dresser where I could see it every morning. Sometimes I opened it and looked at our photo together, her arm around teenage me, both of us smiling. She had seen me. That had to be enough. My parents' lives contracted in proportion to how mine expanded. Through occasional updates from people who still had contact with them, I learned they had moved to a small, semi-detached house in a less prestigious area. My father worked a middle management position with a fraction of his previous authority. My mother took a part-time job at a department store. Their social circle had evaporated. The charity galas and dinner parties and networking events that had defined their lives were gone. People did not forget assault caught on camera. People did not forget the kind of parents who beat their daughter at a party. Sophie's journey was more complicated. She had enrolled at a local university, not the prestigious school she had dreamed of. She worked 2 part-time jobs to help with costs. Her Instagram went dark for months, then returned with a dramatically different tone. No more designer outfits or entitled captions. Just occasional photos of books and coffee, the careful presentation of someone trying to rebuild an image. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard she was in therapy, that she had written me letters she never sent, that she was slowly, painfully coming to understand the toxicity of how she had been raised. I felt no obligation to forgive her. Forgiveness was not something anyone was owed, but I did not hate her either. She had been raised in a sick system, groomed to believe she was more valuable than others, taught that the world existed to serve her. Unlearning that would be the work of her lifetime. I built chosen family carefully, brick by brick. Rachel remained my closest friend, her family my surrogate family. I went to their house for Sunday dinners and holiday celebrations, learning what healthy family dynamics looked like. Rachel's parents asked about my life and listened to my answers. Her siblings teased me affectionately and meant it affectionately. No one kept score. No one measured my worth by what I provided. I dated cautiously, learning to recognize red flags I had been trained to ignore. Men who wanted to move too fast. Men who made me responsible for their emotions. Men who took but never gave. I walked away from all of them without guilt. When I finally met someone worth staying for, it was quiet and unexpected. James was a teacher, kind and patient, with his own history of family complexity. We moved slowly, building trust through honest conversation and mutual respect. He never asked me for money. He split bills fairly. He listened when I said no without making it a negotiation. "This is what healthy feels like," I told Dr. Patel during one session. "It is so quiet, no drama, no chaos, no one keeping score." She smiled. "That is because love is not supposed to hurt, Maria. When it is real, it feels like safety." I started speaking at events about financial abuse, sharing my story with audiences of survivors and advocates, standing on stage, talking about the years of exploitation and the day I chose myself. I watched faces in the crowd, nodding in recognition. Afterward, women approached me with trembling voices and familiar stories. I thought I was the only one. You were never the only one. Some of the money from my trust fund went to supporting domestic abuse charities. My grandmother had given me options when I had none. I wanted to give that gift to others. 2 years after the party, I received a letter forwarded through Emma's office. Sophie had written it, several pages of careful handwriting. Maria, I know I have no right to contact you. I know I do not deserve your time or attention. I am writing not because I expect forgiveness, but because I finally understand enough to be ashamed. I spent 18 years watching Mom and Dad use you. I spent 18 years benefiting from your sacrifice, and I told myself it was normal, that you wanted to help, that you were happy being in the background. But you were not happy, you were drowning, and I stood by and watched, and sometimes I pushed your head under the water because it meant I got what I wanted. I am so sorry. Those words are not enough. Nothing I say will ever be enough. You deserved better from all of us. I hope you are happy now. I hope you have found peace. You always deserved that. I read the letter 3 times. It was honest and painful and showed a level of self-awareness Sophie had never possessed before. But I did not respond. She had done the work of apologizing because she needed to, and that was valuable. But I did not owe her absolution. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, not to treasure, not to dwell on, just to acknowledge and release. 3 years after the party, my flat had transformed into a home. Plants thrived on the windowsills. Art I had chosen hung on the walls. Books lined the shelves, mixing financial texts with poetry and fiction. A small desk by the window held my laptop, where I wrote blog posts helping other survivors navigate financial independence. I started each morning with coffee and sunlight, journaling about my day ahead, not planning how to serve others, just planning how to live fully. My therapy sessions shifted from processing trauma to building future goals. What do you want, Maria? Dr. Patel asked during one session. I want to help more people. I want to train as a financial counselor for abuse survivors. I want to use what happened to me to prevent it happening to others. That is beautiful. What else? I want quiet. I want peace. I want to wake up and not feel dread. I want relationships where I am valued, not used. You are allowed to have all of that. And slowly, I did. On the 4th anniversary of Sophie's party, the day that had shattered my family and freed my life, I did something I had been considering for months. I wrote my own letter, but not to my parents or Sophie. To myself, to the girl I had been at 8 years old, taking care of a baby when she should have been playing, to the teenager who worked every weekend and never got to be young, to the woman who spent 14 years believing her worth was measured in pounds and sacrifice. Dear Maria, you did nothing wrong. You were taught that love was conditional, that acceptance must be earned, that you owed people simply for existing. But love is not a debt. Family is not a contract. You deserve to be cherished simply because you existed, not because you were useful, not because you provided, simply because you were. I am sorry no one taught you that. I am sorry you had to learn it alone. But you learned it, you survived, and now you are building a life where your value is inherent, not earned. I am so proud of you. With love, the woman you became. I folded the letter and placed it in my grandmother's locket beside our photo. 2 generations of women who understood that sometimes saving yourself looks like leaving. My phone rang late one afternoon, a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Maria? It is Sophie. Silence stretched between us. 4 years of hurt and healing compressed into a held breath. I know I should not call. I know you probably do not want to hear from me. But I wanted you to know that I am graduating university tomorrow. And I thought about who I wished could be there. And it was you. I closed my eyes, feeling the complexity of it. Pride that she had worked for something. Sadness that our relationship was so fractured. Anger that still lived under the scar tissue. Sophie, I am glad you are graduating. I am glad you are working and building your life. But I cannot be at your graduation. I understand. She paused, her voice thick. I just wanted to say that I get it now. What they did to you. What I was part of. And I am sorry. Not because I want anything from you. Just because it is true. I appreciate that. Are you happy, Maria? The question surprised me with its simplicity. Yes, I am. Good. That is good. You deserve that. We said goodbye gently, and I sat with the call for a long time after. Sophie was trying. That mattered. But trying after harm did not erase harm. She would have to live with what she had been part of. That was her work, not mine. 5 years after the party, I stood in Rachel's garden at her daughter's birthday celebration, watching children play and adults laugh, and I felt something I had never felt at a family gathering. I felt light. You look happy, Rachel said, handing me a glass of wine. I am genuinely, completely happy. She clinked her glass against mine. You fought hard for this. You earned every bit of peace you have. Later, as the sun set and fairy lights twinkled in the trees, Rachel's mother pulled me aside. I want you to know something, Maria. Watching you rebuild your life, watching you choose yourself, that gave my daughter courage to set her own boundaries. You taught her that family is not obligation. It is love freely given. Thank you for that. I hugged her tightly, understanding that my healing was not just mine. It rippled outward, gave others permission, showed them that survival was possible and thriving was possible, and choosing yourself was not selfish but necessary. I thought about my parents sometimes, wondered if they understood yet, wondered if they ever would, but I did not need them to understand. Their recognition was not required for my peace. I thought about Sophie more, hoped she was learning, hoped she was growing, hoped one day she would be the kind of person who protected rather than exploited. But her journey was hers. I could not walk it for her. Mostly I thought about my grandmother, how she had seen me when no one else did, how she had given me options when I had none, how she had loved me not for what I could provide but for who I was. I whispered to the evening air, "Thank you, Gran. I made it." And in my pocket, my phone buzzed with a message from a woman I had been counseling. Because of your help, I left. I have my own flat now. I am scared, but I am free. Thank you for showing me it was possible. I smiled, typing back. You did the hard part. You chose yourself. I am so proud of you. This was my purpose now. Not funding other people's dreams, but helping survivors build their own. Not sacrificing myself for family approval, but creating community through shared healing. As I drove home that evening, through London streets glowing with streetlights and life, I thought about the girl I had been, standing in an ambulance, tasting blood and fear, and wondering if leaving would destroy her. I had not been destroyed. I had been reborn. And the life I built from the ashes was more beautiful than anything I could have imagined when I was too afraid to dream. The best revenge is not living well. The best revenge is living freely. And freedom, I had learned, tastes sweeter than any approval I ever chased. My name is Maria Carter. I am 37 years old. I am a financial counselor, a survivor, a friend, a partner, a woman who learned to take up space. And I am finally, completely, beautifully free. Tell me your story in the comments. Tell me your city. Tell me if you have ever had to walk away to protect your peace. Because you are not alone. And choosing yourself is not selfish. It is survival. It is strength. It is the beginning of everything you deserve.